The Godfather, the capo di tutti capi, the boss of all bosses, Vito Corleone, had been missing in action for weeks. And tonight was the night that the five families were coming together to discuss his absence and decide what they were going to do about it. It was me. I was there, but I wasn't supposed to be. It was one of those big events that you couldn't get into if you weren't invited. There was a long line of guys outside the gates of the compound where this meeting was being held waiting to get in. They had only let the heads of families in, plus their bodyguards and their consigliere. Now, I was Michael Corleone's bodyguard, and so I wasn't supposed to go in. But I went in anyway because I knew that if something happened to Michael, I'd need to be right there to defend him. I figured that, if I just kind of stayed in the background, I'd probably be okay. So we got inside, and there was a big ballroom with all these long tables and chairs arranged in little groups, like little family groups. I saw the Bonacera family over there. That was the guy who wanted to get rid of my father. His daughter was raped by two of my cousins. Wanted my father to avenge his daughter's honor. My father wouldn't do it, so he went to the other families and tried to get them to put pressure on my dad. That didn't work. So he went straight to the head of the commission and made a complaint. Now, my father was really sick at the time, so he couldn't come to this meeting, which is why he sent me in his place. So, I'm there, and I'm watching these guys from the corner. There was 30 men in the room, 30 men that could kill me in a heartbeat. And then the head of the commission, he comes up to me, and he says, "You can't be here, you should leave." So I said, "No, I'm not leaving without my boss." He said, "Your boss isn't here, and he's never coming back." What did he mean by that? I didn't believe him. I sat there until almost midnight, and no Michael. No Vito. Then I heard rumors in the hallway that Michael had ordered a hit on the Barzini family, and I thought, oh God, that's bad. If the other families find out about that, they're going to jump on Michael. He's going to get whacked. So I start to go to the kitchen, which was close to the back door, figuring I'll meet Michael out there. I'll tell him to get the hell out of there, because he'd made himself a target. I get to the kitchen, and there's Luca Brasi. Now, Luca Brasi was a big, strong guy from Sicily. He used to work for my father, but my father retired him and gave him a pension. He was supposed to be enjoying his life down in Florida, but he showed up at this meeting, and when I asked him what he was doing there, he said, "I work for the boss. I work for Michael." Then he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing here?" I lied and I said, "I'm working for Michael." So he said, "Well, your boss isn't here and he's never coming back." Then he left and he went to the back door. I go to the back door and I see a bunch of guys outside smoking and talking. I walk outside and I hear somebody say, "Did you see the size of that thing on the kid?" Another guy says, "I want to put my hands on it." I figured that they were talking about a gun or something. I didn't realize they were talking about a horse. Now, at first I was really scared. I didn't know where my boss was. I didn't know what was going on. But once I figured out that they were talking about horses, I was like, that's okay. I stay out there and I wait, and pretty soon it's 2 o'clock in the morning and still no sign of my boss. And then I hear some commotion inside and I look through the window and I see all these guys running around like chickens with their heads cut off. There was screaming and yelling and gunfire and people hitting the floor. Now, I don't know what happened. I couldn't see what was going on. I just saw all this action, and then the front door opens and a guy comes out and he's got blood all over him. I don't know who that guy was. No, nobody even acknowledged that I was standing outside. This guy comes running out, jumps in a car and speeds off. About 10 minutes later, another guy comes out. He's covered with blood. He jumps in a car and he drives off. Then a third guy comes out, and he's covered with blood too. And he looks at me and he says, "Get in the car." Now, I was still a little nervous at this point, so I ask him, "Is the boss okay?" He doesn't answer me. He just keeps staring at me. So I get in the car, and he tells the driver to drive to the docks. We get down there, and there's a speedboat waiting for us. I said, "Where's my boss?" And he said, "Your boss is dead." Now, I gotta tell you, I was shocked. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. My dad had been killed. And I think that guy knew that my dad was dead too. I think he was trying to gauge me, see how I would react. We get in the boat and we take off. Go way down the river, turn around and head back. When we got closer to shore, I told the guy, "I gotta get out here." And he said, "No, you're not going anywhere. You're going with us." So I said, "I gotta call my wife and tell her I'm coming home." He said, "No, you're not going to do that either." I said, "What am I going to tell my wife?" That my dad was killed and I'm next? He said, "That's right, you're next." Then he turns to the guy driving the boat and he says, "Turn the radio on." And the guy says, "It's already on." He says, "Put it on again." And the guy puts it on again. And that's when we heard the news report that Don Vito Corleone was dead. Now, I'm telling you this because I think it's important for young men today to understand what it was like back in the day. The world was different then. Things were more personal. Men were more honorable, more courageous. There was a code of conduct back then that governed how we acted. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and break that code because it's gone now, but it's important to understand how it worked. Back then, a man's word was his bond. If you shook hands on a deal, it was done.
Oh.
You didn't need lawyers to draw up contracts. The code demanded that you keep your word. If you said you were going to do something, you did it.
Oh.
These codes also governed how we treated women. We respected them. We protected them. Women knew that they could trust us. We would never do anything to harm them. Today, young men have no respect for women. They treat them like garbage. They objectify them. They belittle them. They use them and abuse them. They wonder why women don't trust them. It's because they've broken the code. When I heard that my father was dead, I felt that I had to avenge his death. It was my duty. It didn't matter that I was scared. It didn't matter that I was nervous. I had to do it. Today, young men are too concerned with their own safety. They'd rather run and hide than stand and fight. They'd rather be victims than warriors. But that's the world we live in now. Back in the old days, men lived by a code, but they also lived by the sword. They were willing to die for their beliefs, for their family, for their honor. Today, men are too afraid to live by the sword. They don't want to die for anything. They're weak. They're soft. They're pathetic. If you want to be a real man, you got to live by the code. You got to live by the sword. You got to be willing to die for what you believe in. Don't be a coward. Don't be a punk. Don't be a victim. Be a man. Now, if you want to learn more about how to become a real man, I suggest you watch this video next. It will show you what it takes to be a true warrior. Don't be a punk. Be a man.